wouldn't dare.
Help! Help!
Dag, why do you risk your life stealing crystals?
Hi.
That's more like it.
Has anyone ever told you that you're awfully cute for a meat body?
Do you like Star Wars?
Where is the truth you promised?
Do you actually like Star Wars?
He's worth $1 million Starbucks, dead or alive.
Way overpriced.
I mean the original serial sci-fi action adventure, and not the Disney slop where they throw nostalgia into a machine that eats childhood nostalgia, and communist propaganda to produce overweight merchandise consumers and YouTube marketing assholes. Do you like American animation? Would you give Ralph Bakshi a child if he would let you?
What the?
Do you like lasers set to disco music, robots, light swords, and swamps and deserts and racial caricatures and sex bots? Well, I have the story for you. In a world where rodent-themed global megacorporations take the world's most beloved franchise and turn it into feminist slop, one movie stands alone to bear the burden of magical science fiction adventure. It has it all.
Behold, the great god of my world.
Evil empires, the hero's journey, roguish anti-heroes, sex bots, sarcastic, irritable British computers, nosy and entitled princesses with a nice rack.
Dag, do something! We've got to save Vortigern!
Shisty desert Arabs, mutant swamp scavengers, and a rickety spaceship that's all heart. No joke. It was the only film released after 1982 that even had an idea what Star Wars was supposed to be. And it executed something familiar yet different, cheaply done, yet richly received. You had no idea this was your favorite movie until I showed you. It's the peak of American animation. It's the last hurrah of a bygone era that will never return. It's Star Chaser, Legend of Ohrian, 1985.
Give me the hilt, Naka, or she will die like the other.
I fucking love that movie, man. Okay, side note. I love it so much. When I first saw it as a kid, I don't remember when it was. There was a scene where they're flying to the princess's place and those ships kind of invade them and they have to shoot them all down. I actually thought that was like some deleted scene out of Star Wars. Absolutely wild. Fucking wild. Anyways, welcome. It's Ohrian. We are talking about the space opera. It does not get enough love, and they have ruined it. They forgot how to make these. It's lost technology, which is crazy. Because, like, all the tools are there. It's not a difficult thing to do. I don't know how they screwed it up. Who's narrating this? This is, to be fair, that's my AI voiceover. Recommendation: Infinity Train. It's a newer show. You may like it. It's a newer show. I most likely will not like it. Who knows? Maybe you're right, though. We'll see. Yeah, so if you guys don't know, this is 1985's Star Chaser, Legend of Ohrian. It was released by some production company out of, like, Minnesota. It's some nobody, came from nowhere, went from nowhere. But the style of it is something that's just magnificent. If you recognized any, like, you couldn't quite place it, it was the American animation that came out of the 70s. Ralph Bakshi. Turns out Disney was making a ton of high production quality animations. Disney was like the leader. In fact, Japanimation came about because what's his face, Watanabe, or whoever the creator of Japanimation Resurgence was, I can't remember his name. But he watched Bambi and he loved that big eye doe look. He's like, you know what? Let's change our entire national identity around that artistic style. And so Bambi created Japanimation. But the West was still there, Warner Brothers and that. And what had happened was Disney was spending huge money on these giant productions. And then Ralph Bakshi came out of nowhere and he's like, I can't afford that. And so they started doing things on the cheap, which is technically what Japanimation did. They, like speed lines, remember speed lines in anime? They did that because it was less drawing required. They borrowed footage, stuff like that. So Bakshi and the American style had a different technique. They called it rotoscoping. You may ask yourself, what's a rotoscope? Well, let me tell you. A rotoscope is where you have actors act a scene, project it onto your page, and then just trace it. Just trace it. It gives a certain quality to the animation. And first off, it's very cheap to produce. It's very quick to like trace over something, way quicker than it is to draw it from scratch. But it gives a certain realism to the animation. And I don't want to call it Uncanny Valley because it's not. But it's just testing the waters of Uncanny Valley where you're like, that's what a real person would move like. And if you watch Disney stuff, the really good animators are the ones that understand human motion, but they also kind of exaggerate it or tone it down in certain places for visual appeal. And there's a whole artistic thing about realism versus naturalism. Naturalism is painting what you see. Realism is painting what you know. Disney style would be more so painting what you know, where the rotoscoping is painting what you see. And they had like gritty voices. There was like background noise in it. It was very rough and very whatever, and it was great. And this guy saw that and he's like, I'm gonna do. And I think Akira. What year was Akira? I want to say Akira was 88. But now I have to make sure because I don't want to be spreading misinformation about a beloved 1988. So 3 years later. They had both done the same thing here. Boondocks, another one, did the same thing. They hired a Korean company of slave labor to do the in-betweens for all of this rotoscoping. They paid like $2 million, something like that. I have a hard time finding, I don't know if it made money back. So what did they do? Star Wars was huge. Everybody was doing, how can I make myself a Star Wars? I want to make a Star Wars. I want to make $1 billion like George Lucas. And that's what they did. There was like 800 different versions of it. And it's not like it was anything new. Even Mark Hamill in the old interviews back in the 80s before he went all Trump derangement syndrome was talking about, it's like, this is the same story they've told 1,000 times. It's that hero's journey. You can trace it back. Yeah, Star Wars did it. You know why Star Wars did it, though? Because George Lucas couldn't get Flash Gordon. He wanted the IP for Flash Gordon. He was going to redo a Flash Gordon. It would have been a Flash Gordon movie, but they're like, no, you can't take it. So he made his own Flash Gordon. And what do you think Flash Gordon did? Flash Gordon made his own Buck Rogers. What did Buck Rogers did? He made his own Space Sherlock Holmes. His own Carter on Mars. John Carter. There's like an unending, you can go back as far as you want. You're going to see it. It all goes all the way back to like the Odyssey, man. Odysseus, essentially, is like the first action-adventure serial for the ancient Greeks thousands of years ago. Yeah, the 70s to the early 80s was kind of an amazing time for legit made in US and Canadian animation. Absolutely. And like there is a lot to work with here. Yeah, Star Chaser Legend of Ohrian, but there was Heavy Metal, which came out 3 years earlier. I think that was 82. That was a Canadian production. Because if you recognize that, you're like, hey, that's John Candy. That's Joe Flaherty. That's Eugene Levy. They have the SCTV cast. If you guys, it's a Canadian TV show called SCTV. It's Saturday Night Live, but it's Canadian. It's funnier than SNL was. I'll give it that. No, Cowboy Bebop, that's a different thing, different genre, whatever. George Lucas made Willow because... Did George Lucas make Willow? For some reason, I should know that, but I don't. All right, whatever. I'm not going to look it up. So the rotoscoping was a way of cheaply producing it. Koreans were cheap as shit. They were the Mexican day laborers of animation for like 30 years. It's only recently that they've made their own career from it. Yeah, it's a good thing you didn't remake it. Yeah, to be fair. And that's one of the videos I'm going to do later on is the Flash Gordon one. Anyways, back to this. Yeah, so they took the hero's journey. They put it in space. They used rotoscoping. And it's the thing that I like about the movies that are good is they don't become a cookie cutter copy paste. Yeah, there's maybe they'll use cliches, like the hero's journey is a very cliched thing, a space opera is a very cliched thing, but they mix and match from it. Same as Predator. They took your standard action movie, and they flipped it on its head and they turned it into like a horror film. What? Yeah. The first half of the movie is Predator, is like the action movie Predator. The second half is Friday the 13th. Or Freddy Krueger kind of shit. Or Halloween. It's just an evil presence hunting these guys in the dark. What happens if the action movie stars were the same pathetic women that could get killed by Mike Myers? I was like, see what I mean? Mixing things together. And the best ones mixing together. And this one did. You guys like, I want Ralph Bakshi mixed with Star Wars with a little bit of Akira. And what's the Akira part? This is something else. So computers were new, really new back then. And it was impossible to animate more than like wireframes. That's why when you watch the original Star Wars, the scene where they go into the Death Star and launch the thing, when they showed it on the vid screen, that's about as hardcore as CGI get. If you watch Wrath of Khan, when they do the demonstration about Genesis, that's about as hardcore as graphics get. You're getting like that beyond the mind's eye technical demonstration thing. Chrome, wireframes, landscapes. It's the best you're going to do. It's the best you're going to do. So what did animators think? Like, well, wireframes. You know what we're already doing? We're just doing wireframes with film anyway. And so for the spaceship on this one, they CGI the wireframes and then they hand paint over it. And I think that is a far superior technique to what people do now, where they completely color everything in. In fact, I wish and you want to see a good example of doing it poorly, there's an anime called Golgo 13, which is like Japanese James Bond. Don't do that. Ghost in the Shell kind of figured it out. They technically put all the CGI stuff into like a CRT television monitor kind of thing. So it's supposed to look shitty. So they made it work. But for the most part, if companies today, when they were doing animations, and they're still shell shading everything, don't CG shit. CG wireframe it and then pan paint it. Well, there's software that can do it. Yeah, it doesn't look the same. I don't know what to tell you. If they wanted to, they would have made CGI look like matte paintings for backdrops and stuff, but they can't, and they don't, and it just doesn't look right. The matte paintings give it a... how to describe this? There's a certain suspension of disbelief, and mostly people talk about that, where you have to ignore things that would happen in real life but don't in the universe of like the self-contained story, which is fine. Matte paintings do a different thing though. It's a suspension of disbelief in the sense that they are telling you this is a fictional story, and you'd like, why does that matter? Like, first off, it's visually it's interesting, where everybody knows this is a piece of work. This is a work. And you wouldn't think, well, yeah, everybody knows that films aren't real. It's like, not so much, man. Have you ever been on Twitter? Have you ever talked with people? Have you ever talked with progressives? Do you know what they do? Everything is Star Wars references and Harry Potter references, and this is just like the thing. And they talk about movies as if they're real life. Like, they're literally the wrestling is real people that used to mock people who thought wrestling was fun. You know wrestling's not real, right? Yeah, do you? Oh. You know Star Wars isn't real? Do you know Harry Potter's not real? Yeah, but it represents the real world. It's like, yeah, it represents what an author told you. An author did something, a screenwriter did something else, and they put it down not because it was true, but because it was compelling. At least if they did it right. If they didn't do it right, it's just flat out shitty propaganda. Or social conformity. So yeah, I enjoy, and I guess this is a phase that all special effects go through, where it starts as a technical limitation to make something as realistic as possible, and then once the technology moves past it, it gets a resurgence. It comes back as like a stylistic choice, like the hand-drawn, cel-shaded animations. I think they are due for a comeback. Now back to Star Chaser. It actually was not well received because everybody looked at it like, it's just a Star Wars clone. Remember when Doom came out, then all the first-person shooters were just Doom clones? Yeah, it was one of the Doom clones of Star Wars. There was that. There was the Battlestar Galactica TV series. It was kind of campy. Not the 2000s one, the one from the 80s and 90s. I think it ended in like 88 or something like that. There's tons of movies like this. Every space adventure, there's ice pirates. I could probably think of like a bunch more. Don't have dreads because shave my head daily. Call me a skinhead. I call you a pinhead. What are you rambling about? Oh yeah, because there was a bunch of these ones, and it was just slop, and everybody looked at them as if they were just like knockoff Star Wars, which Star Wars was knockoff Flash Gordon, but it didn't matter because they did the things, they did it right. Anyways, so fast forward, you got Lucas has decided, you know what I'm going to do with all my movies? I'm going to shitify them. I'm going to throw CG into Star Wars that I couldn't have added before, not realizing that the technical limitations he had at the time created a stylistic quilt that he put all over his films, which gave them their own aesthetic, like the Star Wars aesthetic. And I know everybody's like, oh, it's just LucasArts, right? But no, it's the special effects that they used are unique to them. You don't see those in other places. They had like model battleships, so everything is very cutty and jaggedy, and that there's no like big bubbly ships, at least not until the prequels and that. Everything had it was like a mixture of green screens, of CGI, and the specific flavoring that they used was something unique to that. So when Lucas comes in and just throws CGI slop into the prequel, he kind of fucked with the recipe. He knew it's New Coke. It's New Coke. Remember New Coke? Turns out Coke was losing market share to Pepsi. So Coke people went, hey, let's make Coke sweeter. And they did, and they tested, and everybody's like, dude, this tastes way better than Coke. And so they put it out, and they called it Coke. And everybody's like, fuck you. That's not Coke. Because they forgot. Like, yeah, sure, you can make a better recipe, but people don't want better. They want the association that they have now. They want the familiarity. In fact, if the prequel guys were at all competent, which I mean, technically competent, but not a single one spoke up against Lucas. Lucas is his own worst enemy. He's got great ideas, but he needs people to reel him in. They would have made the aesthetics for the prequels the same as the original, and it probably would have done a lot better. If he had hired his wife to do the editing, it probably would have done better too. But for the new one, same thing. So what happens now? You got a photocopy of the original Star Wars. That's the special editions. And then somebody took that and they made a photocopy of that, and then you get the prequels. And you got some, it's kind of looks like it, but not really. And it's kind of a little messy here, and it's a little whatever here, and this looks a little more polished than it should be. And then they did a photocopy of that, and that's when you get the sequels. And you're like, what the fuck is this? And that's when you get that Astrolux camera, that gray instead of black. The special effects are a little bit too shiny, a little too sharp. Kind of feels like you're being pandered to. And then you get the new Star Wars where they're doing like the rainbow LGBT lightsabers and shit. And you're just like... And you understand what like when you hear the concept deep fried, you understand what it means. It's a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. Each time it's picking up artifacting and grit and grain, and there's always like a degradation of the original signal. And you used to think, when you think that, you always think it means worse and shittier. But in this case, it kind of went the other way. Shinier, smoother. It's just not the same. So now that this has all happened, the movies like Star Chaser and Buck Rogers and all that stuff, they're making a resurgence because now they don't get judged by the Star Wars overlord coming over. They get judged on their own merits. And if you watch Star Chaser Legend of Ohrian, and I'm pretty sure it's available on YouTube for free, by the way. You don't even have to buy it. Like, you'll realize, dude, it has its own collection, its own quilt that it puts over top of it. Yeah, so you got the rotoscoping. You got the American style of animation right there. It's cell shaded. You've got CGI spaceships that are integrated in seamlessly because it does the same cell shading. You have Hero's Journey stuff, and it has... Alright, so for science fiction that came out of the 70s, for the most part, what happens is they give him disco. You're like, what? Yeah, that was a 70s sci-fi thing. Everything had disco. Because back then it was disco. Kind of in the 80s, how everything had synth. And then now in the 2000s, everything's kind of like vaporwavy and chip-tuned and stuff. Because back in the day, disco was like the most technologically advanced music we had. And so if you wanted to do a technologically advanced space opera, of course you'd use disco. That's the newest thing we got. And then in the 80s, oh, we got synthesizers now. Let's use synthesizers for it. Another thing that made Star Wars unique is they used an opera. They used like a 20-man opera or something like that. Now, the reason that Star Chasers did such a great job is it was kind of a hybrid. It had sections of like, it's not even full disco, but it had like a definite disco groove beat to it. But at the same time, it also had its orchestratic elements. And so it would pepper. It had like a mix. For tension scenes, for action, or for scenes of action, subterfuge, they would use the disco, the synthy disco sounds. And it was really good beats. Like I said, the one where the chicks, like the sex bot distracts the guards by shaking her thing, and then they fucking beat him up. They have like this disco chase scene. Really cool. But then when you get to the heroic stuff, the climaxes, the main battles, that's when they get the orchestra in there. And so you get a mixture of both space opera and the space disco opera. And it's just a unique combination you don't see. People will go one or they will go the other. They've never thought to do both. And I love how these guys just took everything and the kitchen sink and they put it all together. And it's its own unique thing now. And it's aging so much better than you thought it would. And I hate when I watch like nerds talk about it. They're like, dude, look at that animation. The thing's all weird and this is all weird and the eyes don't look right. It's like, yes, they do. They look exactly the way they're supposed to look. That is a specific style. And you don't believe me? There is tons of films to go with. You watch Felix the Cat. You watch Coontown. You watch Lord of the Rings. Yeah, Ralph Bakshi did some rotoscoping of that. He almost got through it too. You watch The Hobbit. You watch Cool World. You watch Fire and Ice. You watch all these ones. And you realize, okay, that's the look that they have. That's technically what real eyes look like, but because it's drawn, it adds a certain level of like abstraction to it. It's kind of like how a matte painting, you know that? The suspension of disbelief? The matte painting has that level of unrealism that kind of lets you know it's a work. Same thing with the rotoscoping. Yeah, it's realistic stuff, but they have enough stylized choices, which might have been technical limitations, that it doesn't push you into that uncanny valley, which a lot of modern CGI does get you. And I know people hate when I talk about like the user experience, but I would argue from an artistic perspective, the user experience is more important than ever. Books are good at it. Good books are good at it. The user experience. Like I'll use an example. My own book. It's the older version, but that's fine. It doesn't really matter. I don't need to worry about the spelling mistakes. Let me see if I can get to a chapter ending here. I'm trying to make what they call a metaphor in the business. There, see? That typeface there, it's a slab serif. It's a very modern type font. It was popular in the 70s. It's like a pulp idea. I also use the page numbering. It's kind of what they used to use at those, you remember those little plastic guns you'd have that you'd type things out and then you'd punch it in and then it would make a sticker? Like those as well. So it's got a touch of nostalgia to it. The text is Adobe Caslon, so it's like 1500s. It's made to be a completely readable font. You go through all of it. It's the same thing. That gives a certain feel that you're not going to see in other books. Here's another example. Rational Male. You guys may not know him. His name Rollo Tomasi. Different choices. He runs... I think he used Bembo on his. But you see that? It has a more like very thin look to it. It almost looks like a Bible when you're reading it, right? Very tiny font. Very small. It's like packed full of information. It gives a completely different look. Even nonfiction has this. You go to like Thomas Seeger's. It's one of his about testosterone and cold baths. Same thing here. So these small aesthetic choices, they change the reader expectations and they change the reader experience. And altogether, these come together as a user experience, right? Same thing. Covers. This cover kind of gives you the impression. Same thing. It's like a matte painting. It's watercolored and cartoonish. It's as close to rotoscoping meets anime meets like realistic. It's made to be like when I described him, I was like, make an impressionist Ralph Bakshi. That was my prompt for the artist. And he absolutely did it. Yeah, I have that book. You should have that book. It's a good goddamn book. I'm telling you right now. In fact, Let's put a link to that book. There's a reason I talk about storytelling so goddamn much. It's because I'm actually pretty good at it. Pretty good at it. And I have books out. This is the first one. Well, the first fiction one. I have like 5 others. And Jig Long Softbone's coming out. So I'm probably going to dive more to Cyberpunk in the show coming up. But anyways. So yeah, so you get this and you watch it on its own merits. And it's got that certain stylized quality to it. It's abstract when it needs to be. It's realistic when it needs to be. It has a little bit of naturalism when it needs to be. It has a certain styles of music that they were of their time, but they've since come together afterwards. And that's the thing. Technical limitations have created a movie that had to be created the way it was. But the specific combination of the technical elements have again aged and now become stylistic choices. And that's what you get. You get a whole new piece. You get to appreciate it now for what it is and not what you want it to be. When you watch this in 1985 when it came out, you were watching this with the expectation that you were watching Star Wars and cartoons. And of course it was a disappointment because Star Wars isn't a cartoon. Star Wars is a special effects masterpiece. And so you watch this with that expectation, you're going to hate it. But it's been 30, 40 years. Star Wars is no longer Star Wars. Star Wars is shiny leather furniture, synthetic leather, selling kids toys. And now you get to watch this as if it was its own movie that came out and Star Wars never existed. And you realize it's awesome. And I'm telling you, man, you watch it now. American Dragon, Jake Long on Disney Plus, dude, that would be fucking funny. And I know I'm swooning over it a lot, but I really am. Because as a kid, I knew this. As a kid, I didn't understand all the shit I'm talking about now. I just watched it as a cartoon, and it was like cartoons didn't have this. They were starting to. I was starting to get into Transformers and G.I. Joe and the idea that cartoons can do things. And I was like, oh, they're still kind of kid-like cartoons, whatever. But then I remember watching Fire and Ice and like, dude, they just killed a dude. These cartoons look like real people. What the fuck? And then as a kid, I watched them like, dude, this is awesome. This is fun. Even though it's cliched. There's on every layer of the story, it's cliched. But it's like 4 different cliches. Hero's journey on the bottom. You know, guy has to save the world. Guy turns it down. Guy goes ahead. Guy meets a wise sage. He meets a rogue. He meets a princess. He has to fight the big bad, overcome his thing, save the world, right? Everybody knows that story. You've seen it written 500 times. It's every story out there. It would have been just boring if that's what it was. But then on top of that, you add like the style to it. What makes it different than every other one? Well, this one's animated. Holy shit, it's animated. Well, that's kind of cool. Then you walk in, is it like Disney animation? It's like, no. Is it like Japanimation? No. It's rotoscoping. What the hell's rotoscoping? Well, because we can't afford to pay people to animate at 60 frames a second. We're going to animate it at 12 frames a second. We're going to take photocopy, and it looks too shitty. So we're going to take photocopies of people, trace over it, and make it look in there. Well, that's interesting. Well, you should be spending more money for higher quality. Yeah, it's like you can do higher quality if you want to. It doesn't make it better. It just makes it higher quality. And then on top of that, what about the music? Well, everybody's using disco. Well, yeah, we're using disco too. So you're just like the old Battlestar Galactica. It's like, no. We also have orchestra. Oh, like Star Wars. Yeah, but we do both. You do both? Interesting. And we're going to hit all the beats of the stuff you like. The swamp planet. The cyborg people that hack other people apart and take their parts and use them as their own. That's the Dagobah swamp. And cyborgs were big in all kinds of sci-fi movies at the time too, right? Everybody loved cyborgs. There was always a swamp. Because there's always symbology. Like a city in the clouds is supposed to mean one thing. A swamp is supposed to mean the other. That was the one trope of sci-fi that was interesting, is that planets would all be a single climate. Because then they could symbolize different things. You have the underground mining world. Oh, wow, what's that about? Well, that's the cavern that's being captured. That's Plato's. It was like a Plato's cave allegory in a cartoon made for kids in 1985. Can you believe that shit? Never dig up. That was the saying, never dig up. Yeah, the same look as Brave Star, He-Man, Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle. Yeah, or even in Dungeons and Dragons, if you remember, it would have been Dark Sun, I think was the world for this stuff. Or if you were to heavy metal, Den. You remember Den? In Heavy Metal, the movie, he was played by John Candy, the bald guy in the world. It was like a mishmash of Aztec, Stone Age technology mixed with futuristic high tech like laser guns and stuff, with a little bit of magic thrown in, like medieval magic, and like Mongolian steppe barbarism. And they put it together into this like wonderful thing. And it's in there. And I fucking love it. People don't do that anymore. They don't mix things together. So you have the city in the clouds. You have the sky city. You have the robot city that's just a giant factory. You have all these things together. So there's like a bunch of symbolisms in there. There's Plato Cave on this one. There's the desert place where they're doing commerce and they're being swindled out by the Arabs. They don't have those stereotypes anymore. The shisty Arab who's trying to swindle you out of money, and he's like rich but he lives in a tent. Or the ancient like Ming the Merciless Oriental Shanghai villain shit. Oh, it's one of my favorite things about Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, is where they had like the evil Shanghai villains. Oh, some cool shit. Yeah. And then on top of that, you have another layer on top of that. The orchestra. The orchestra and the disco. It's high tech when it needs to be. It's operatic when it needs to be. So it's a space. And then they put a space opera on top of that one, where it's like an opera. It's like a melodrama. You're like, and then all of these layers add on top of each other. The characters don't really have many arcs. Like Ohrian has an arc. But that's about it. Dag doesn't grow as a human being. The sex bot technically does. And why do I think her name was Celesta? No, it wasn't. I was like, there's no way Turd Flinging Muggy named his sex doll after her. There's no fucking way. You're like, what? What? You're just going to gloss that over? Yeah, I'm going to gloss that over. You can look into it if you want to. I wouldn't suggest it. The princess doesn't really grow, other than she learns that they're lying to her. The villain is kind of one-dimensional. And that's something I've been doing a lot lately, where I show movies where the only character arc is the villain, which I find to be a fascinating decision that they make. Like The Punisher was just great for that. The villain, the main villain, Franco, he's the only one that has a character arc in this one. Nobody else does. Like, that's fucking wild. Yeah, they didn't give him one too. It's just Ohrian. And his is simple. He has a need and a want. He wants to escape, but he needs to save the world. He wants to save his people, but he needs to like discover that the power is always inside of himself. Kind of shit like that. That's very hippy dippy shit, but it works because they implement it well and they make it cool and they hide all the gay stuff behind awesome laser swords. And dude, everybody loved laser swords after Star Wars with the lightsabers. Everybody did. So these guys were like, how do we do that, but not just rip off Star Wars? I think they did a great job. It was an ancient hilt that the last rebellion had, and the sword was like the symbol of things. And it was like, it was weird because sometimes it just chopped through stuff. Whenever he needed it to chop through something, it would chop through it. But when it didn't, it didn't. It was almost like it had a mind of its own, and it only did good things. It only became a sword when it was good for him, which seems like that's like plot armor. It does seem like that, doesn't it? But it works. And you kind of realize why later, because this little pixie that's been following the whole time that was attached to the sword was the soul of the original guy who freed his people. And then he lets him know, like, yeah, the reason that the sword works when you want it to work and doesn't work when you don't want it to work is because the sword isn't, the hilt isn't actually the power. The lightsaber handle is not what makes the lightsaber. It's you. It's your will to succeed, your will to win, your will to save, your absolute goodness. And that's when at the end when he figures out, because they throw the hilt away and he's like, and he has to make it out of his own hands. It's like, holy shit. They actually turned something that would have been a really cheap plot armor trick and they make it a functional part of the story. It's like, it's such a small detail, and until I would mention it, you never would have thought of it. And I'm like, it's just fucking brilliant. And I'm just amazed because you look at the 80s and you look at the 90s and you see movies, they were just slop. Like Star Chaser, I'm under no illusions that it's like, this is the greatest, it was Terminator 2. They spent more on this than, no. Yeah, a couple million, throw it out a project, throw it out there, sell some VHS, make it a day. It was bargain bin, average thing. It was the local plumber. It was the local Walmart of movies. And they made hundreds of movies like this. There was and most of them are on this channel. I Come in Pieces, The Punishers, The Star Chasers, The Highlander 2s. They're mid-budget. They were tradespeople. It was the Toyota Corolla of movies. And the average The average movie-going experience was people who were really good at what they fucking did. They did some amazing things. They liked their job so much they didn't just phone it in. All right, give them the bare minimum. Let's get it. It's like, no, I'm gonna make a space opera. I'm gonna rotoscope it, and I'm gonna add a Plato's Cave reference to it. Why? Because I fucking can. And I was like, dude, there is something, and don't tell me you don't see it. There is something about watching something that's built with love and people that give a shit. If you don't believe me on this, if you don't think that makes a difference, what did you watch on YouTube today? What did you watch on YouTube yesterday? I bet you a lot of you guys, there's a channel that just fixes people's lawns. He sees people with horrible front yards, horrible backyards. He's like, hey, I do a thing where I film fixing people's yards for YouTube. Would you like me to fix your front yard for free? And they'll always say yes. And he takes this horrible yard and he makes it look just fucking stunning. Or Out of the Woods. This guy's a YouTube channel. He just has a sawmill. And he takes old lumber that's been laying around on people's property and he picks it up and he turns it into wonderful like 8x4s and some crazy different dimensions of wood. He shows you cross grains. He shows you, how he cuts it this, why he cuts it this. There's a cedar tree that's 300 years old that he turns into wonderful wood and how he built a new factory. And you're watching a guy who just gives a shit and knows what he's doing. These things are popular because they're scratching that same itch that the guys who made Star Chaser and Legend of Ohrian did. You're watching a guy who gives a shit about his job and does it well and likes doing it well. How could you not like that? And I think that's the one thing that's missing. Everybody now is just doing minimum viable product. They're treating it like tech bros. Do the basic minimum we can get to get a Star Wars movie out this year. We got to get going. We don't care. And then everybody's like, whatever, I'm getting paid. Make the lightsaber pink. Fuck it. Sure. And they cheap out on this and they cheap out on this and nobody cares. Nobody likes it. Bill Burr's in a Star Wars fucking film and he's in a Star Wars TV show. You know what do you remember? He used to joke, I don't give a shit about this nerd shit. And then they put me in this nerd shit as an actor. He's there for the paycheck. He's not there because he loves Star Wars. He's there because he loves money. And I'm not shitting on him. I think he's fine enough as an actor and he did the part well as best he could, but there's just something that's missing from people who don't give a shit. And you really do have to go back. And it's not nostalgia. It's just you have to go back. You have to go back to the 80s because you know what happened in the 80s? People were trained by guys who came back from the Second World War and made those movies in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. They had 30 years of like war vets who were like, you know what, I'm going to make a great movie. And they made some awesome movies. This stuff in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, like your Planet of the Apes, your Easy Rider, your Rolling Thunder, your Dirty Harry, your Death Wish. Great shit. And those people made some of the best stuff that's out there. And then those people had the guys from the 80s working under them. So then the guys from the 80s, and a lot of them had come back from Vietnam too, right? Yeah, I was in Vietnam. Yeah, I was down there. It was pretty good. Now I'm making movies, and I was trained by a dude who fought the Nazis. And they're making some awesome movies too. And I know a lot of I mentioned vets, but some guys had like other cool jobs. Like one was a gumshoe, a private eye, he was an ex-cop who used to work in a factory. Like cool shit like this. Stuff that's interesting, that has some life experience. Not, I went to Juilliard for film studies. And now I'm a pretentious prick. But I love Kurosawa film. Like, fuck you. Love Kurosawa. Fuck you. Hey, Joe, it's good to see you, sir. Yeah, Frank Frazetta. Dude, anybody who knew Dungeons & Dragons art back in the day knew Ralph Bakshi, Frank Frazetta. What's the other guy? Fuck, there's a third one. And why am I forgetting his name? I have to look this up. I know exactly who I'm talking about. What the hell? I don't know any of these guys. Not Clyde Caldwell. It's not Larry Elmore. It's not Jeff Easley. Although Jeff Easley was one. And he was the other one that did oiled up fucking half naked people. I'll find him. Oh, everybody's just stealing off of the same guys. Boris Vallejo. That's the guy. Yeah. So if you love Frank Frazetta and you love Ralph Bakshi, you'll love Boris Vallejo. I think he's a Spanish artist. Oh, and it's funny because I always get his stuff mixed up with Frazetta sometimes. Like, you know the art that you would see on movie posters, like National Lampoon's Vacation? That was him. Yeah, oiled up, naked barbarians and stuff like that. It was pretty cool shit. Yeah, one of the authors that we've talked to each other too. She has an interview with his grandson, I think it is. Fuck, I gotta remember to put a link on this. Anyways, yeah, so when you watch this stuff, this is what I kind of want you to take from this. When you watch it, I want you to watch it on its own terms. And that's, I think, the big thing, because a lot of parents will watch like these and they're like, oh, what the fuck is this shitty cartoon? And they have their own expectations, their own preconceived ideas. It's like, no. Shut all that shit off. Don't worry about the feminists. Don't worry about Critical Drinker. Don't worry about reviews. Don't worry about cartoons made for kids. Just shed your mind of all that stuff. You sit down and you're like, I want this thing to tell me what it is, what it's trying to do, what it's about, and what I'm supposed to enjoy. You watch a movie on its own terms, and then you realize this, oh my God, it's actually like really good. And then your brain will gloss over, yeah, the eye was drawn a little weird here because the way rotoscoping works, or the animation here is a little bit jank. Your brain glosses over all that shit once you're put into the story, and you realize, dude, that's kind of fun. And then you get in and you hear the disco thing, you're like, yeah, it has this as a leitmotif because you know some intense like battle stuff is coming. And then they do their heroic stuff and you realize that stuff's coming. And then, yeah. As long as they're only girls. You got to have some male power fantasies too, right? And you'll watch this. And then if you watch Star Chaser, I think you'll really... And you get into the animation style and you get into the aesthetics of it. That's when you're going to start going down the rabbit hole into the entire 20-year history of like the rotoscoping animations. You're going to watch Cool World. You're going to watch Fritz the Cat. You're going to watch Coontown. You're going to watch Fire and Ice. You're going to watch The Lord of the Rings. You're going to watch The Hobbit. You're going to watch all of these ones. And then you eventually get into like some of the Warner Brothers stuff like Iron Giant, Brave Little Toaster. And I use the Brave Little Toaster as like a gimmick where I'm talking about few movies are perfect. And then I'll pick a bunch out of the genre. So if I'm talking about Star Chaser, I'm like, few movies are perfect. Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, The Brave Little Toaster. And it always ends with The Brave Little Toaster. But The Brave Little Toaster was a fucking amazing movie. They and The Iron Giant, they will bring grown people to tears. Just the blanket worried about having that big magnet thing. And they make it kind of a musical too, or The Iron Giant. You want to make a grown man cry? You show him that scene where the big robot says Superman and then flies into the fucking nuke. Ugh. You want to watch your dad cry? That's how you have it happen. And the Iron Giant never spoke to the whole... He was like Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy. So like the first thing he ever says, and it brings you to tears, is fucking awesome. Anyway, so you're going to get down into this rabbit hole, and you're going to absolutely love it. You're going to enjoy so many things. You're going to realize there's like 20 years of cinema that they never exposed you to. They don't put it on Netflix. They're ruining your life with stupid melodramas, the Sabrina the Teenage Witch shit. Yeah, you are what you choose to be. You get it. And that was what made it so compelling too, because it's like, for films, they have like a moral message. Something that the author or the artist is trying to convey to you. And for the Iron Giant, you are what you choose to be was exactly it. So when he says that, makes the choice. Some cool shit. I've never seen it, but I have seen The Brave Little Toaster. There's a sequel to The Brave Little Toaster? That's bullshit. There's no way, Zach. Holy shit, it did. Oh, and it got all the actors too. What the fuck happened here? All right, no. Don't watch The Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars. I guarantee you it's not as good. You watch the original. The original is just a simple story. It's a kid who's going off to college, and he gets rid of all of his childhood shit. There's like a vacuum cleaner, a blanket, a toaster, and they all have all these memories of growing up with the kid, and so they go on an adventure to go to his college dorm and find him. And then, it's the same story as Star Chaser Legend of Ohrian. Until you get to the very end when they're at a junkyard and the kid's looking... I don't remember why the kid was there. He's there with his girlfriend. He was just looking for some stuff to fill his dorm room with her when he was like, wait a minute, I recognize this. That's my old vacuum. That's my old lamp. That's my old... and the guy who played the lamp was the voice for Big Bird too, so it was always kind of cool because you recognize it. And then he finds all this stuff, but then this big magnet's picking up trying to destroy all the stuff because it's trying to kill the blanket and the lamp and the toaster and all that shit. And they almost kill the kid, so they have to save the kid. It's like a heartwarming story, man. There's 2 sequels now. I'm not opposed to it. Just didn't know it existed. It's one of those exceptions to my rule of like, why don't you just take a sequel and do some shit? The sequels, they just phone it in. I guarantee you they phone it in. They miss what made the original great. And that's why I wish the Brave Little Toaster, if they did want to make a good Brave Little Toaster sequel, they should have done what Highlander did. You have the elements of the story, but just change things. Although technically, I guess that's what they did with the Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars. It just doesn't work. At the end, it's all in the execution. So, anyways, if you haven't seen it, go see it. I'm doing the preview again just because I love that fucking that much. Give it again, sir.
You wouldn't dare.
Help! Help! What?
Dag, why do you risk your life stealing crystals?
Hi.
That's more like it.
Has anyone ever told you that you're awfully cute for a meat body?
Do you like Star Wars?
Where is the truth you promised?
Do you actually like Star Wars?
He's worth 1,000,000 Starbacks, dead or alive.
Way overpriced.
I mean the original serial sci-fi action adventure, and not the Disney slop where they throw nostalgia into a machine that eats childhood nostalgia and communist propaganda to produce overweight merchandise consumers and YouTube marketing assholes. Do you like American animation? Would you give Ralph Bakshi a child if he would let you?
What the?
Do you like lasers set to disco music, robots, light swords, and swamps and deserts and racial caricatures and sex bots? Well, I have the story for you. In a world where rodent-themed global megacorporations take the world's most beloved franchise and turn it into feminist slop, one movie stands alone to bear the burden of magical science fiction adventure. It has it all.
Behold, the great god of my world.
Evil empires, the hero's journey, roguish anti-heroes, sex bots, sarcastic, irritable British computers, nosy and entitled princesses with a nice rack.
Dag, do something! We've got to save Vortigern!
Shisty desert Arabs, mutant swamp scavengers, and a rickety spaceship that's all heart. No joke. It was the only film released after 1982 that even had an idea what Star Wars was supposed to be. And it executed something familiar yet different, cheaply done, yet richly received. You had no idea this was your favorite movie until I showed you. It's the peak of American animation. It's the last hurrah of a bygone era that will never return. It's Star Chaser, Legend of Ohrian, 1985.
Give me the hilt, Taka, or she will die like the other.
Before I go, it's just a small thing. I don't know if anybody's picked up on it or not, but I always like throwing like a little bit of low-grade misogyny into like the previews and shit. Like if you notice that, like it just chokes out a bunch of women, and I put that in there. Or if you watch The Punisher, it's when he fucking snaps the neck of that ninja chick. Or for Way of the Gun, the scene where you punch out Sarah Silverman. I don't know why. I just like adding a little bit of that. Just kind of my way of like, fuck you and your sensibilities. Like this is good shit. I don't care about your fucking feelings. Anyways, enjoy, watch it. I have got to do heavy metal. I got to put that on the list. I think if you're doing this, we got to do that. So yeah, enjoy. Have fun. I'll catch you guys later.